This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning and welcome to you this morning and these beautiful impala. Welcome to Live Safari. Let's go. Hello everybody and good morning. Welcome to a very chilly and cold Djuma Private Game Reserve where it is 6 degrees Celsius, 56 degrees Fahrenheit, and what can I say? It is rather cold. My name is Steve, joined by BK on camera, and we are very excited to have you with us once again. And kids, welcome to the show as always, and please send your kids' questions to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. Now, very good news. Tingana was found last night by Trishala. We're going to see if we can try track down the old Duke of Djuma, see what he's been up to. And bad news is I was chatting on the radio last night and I got some information about a female leopard with a cub, and they sent us some photos, and it seems as if Thandi and her little boy are in fact on Torchwood. So that is the bad news. Not that anything has happened, just that they're on the other side. These impala don't seem like they've seen a big male leopard in the last few hours. Normally, animals like this will still show a little bit of sort of skittishness and jumpiness for a good 45 minutes to an hour. If they've been hunted or chased, they will look a little bit jumpy. Right now you can see they're looking quite content to just stand out in the open and feed. Oopsie, there we go. There's a little jump I'm talking about, which means that male leopard has been through here. I just don't know exactly how long ago. And there were some tracks on this open road just before, but they were driven on, which means it was from last night. And as you know, I'm not alone out here, everybody. A good friend of mine, Trishala Naidu, is around the corner, and she'd like to say good morning.
Yes, we are. We are all looking at impala, trying to get some clues as to where our leopards have gone to. We had Tingana last night, and Lalamba was near the pan. So just maybe we'll be lucky. Hello everyone, welcome aboard to our kids. My name is Trishala with Davy on camera this morning. It's a very cold morning, 6 degrees Celsius, 42 degrees Fahrenheit. So there's lots of layers, lots and lots of layers. But we are going to be driving around, which is going to make us even colder, but we'll do it for you guys, and so that we can find our leopards. Now let's just watch these guys having a snack. Everyone is pretty relaxed. You can see that they're a little bit fluffed up. That's why they look a little bit darker. Because they've picked up their fur, and now they've picked up their ears and their heads too. Something got their attention, but there's some hyenas whooping in the background. Well, you know when you're cold and all your hairs stand up on your body? That's to keep you a little bit warm, because it's like an extra layer of clothing. Because all the air gets trapped between those hairs, and you can get some insulation. Hopefully that'll keep you a little warmer, and that's what these impala are doing. We're going to listen. Don't hear any clues just yet. Now their heads are back down, eating. It's a beautiful morning, even though it's cold, and I hope that we'll find lots of lovely animals. Now, Steve is doing one of our favorite things out here, and that is watching the sunrise. Let's go over and watch with him.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, this is something that I love to do, to just stop and wait for the sunrise. And there's a trick there as well, because by driving in the cold air, it's actually pretty cold. But by stopping, it's not as cold. And observing the sunrise is, as Trish said, one of her favorite things. It's one of my favorite things. So, everybody, I'm just going to stop droning on for now and allow you to just absorb this early morning.
Check for female.
Sorry about that. It was the game drive radio. Charlotte obviously finding tracks of a female leopard, I would suppose. Here it comes. Another day. I personally enjoy spending quiet moments reflecting on our previous day and putting forward positivity into the day that is about to be born. No regrets. I'm quite privileged to be able to spend time with the sunrise and sunset every day. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that, everybody. With the news of Thandi and her cub being tortured, I'm not going to be searching for her today, and I'm going to be focusing on the little things. And quite a lot of good positive feedback about the birds the other day. Those of you who don't know me, I could do birding all day long, so we're going to focus on birds today and show you many of the wonderful birds that we still have around these areas in the winter. But at the same time, we still check the ground for tracks. We still want to make sure whether animals have come in or not. We'll be looking for any signs of the lions returning, although we heard them a little while ago. They were very far away. And you never know, Thandi might come back on, so we'll check it out. But we're going to focus on birds and small things like that. And it seems like we have a new gentleman on the table today, so let's go say good morning to him.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bunny. I'm excited to join you for the very first time this morning. I am, of course, with Owen, who is going to be my cameraman for the morning. And we had some leopard calling out of camp this morning at around 5. And as we headed out of camp, we had some jackal distress calling. So we've got tracks of that leopard heading west at the moment, and we just driving around the riverbed. We have not seen any other signs so far. Up in a tree here to say good morning to everyone and welcome to the show, to show how excited we are for this morning. We've got an African harrier hawk just perching in a jackalberry tree. Still quite cold this morning, possibly the quite coldest morning so far. But yeah, we bundled up, gloves, everything, and excited to see what we can get. African hawk eagle. Finn, it doesn't live in that only tree. It's just spent the night in that tree since it has been a very cold evening. It's perching there, enjoying a little bit of a sunshine this morning, warming itself up. It's most likely to start flying once it's warm enough to try and look for prey. And there might be another one close by. These particular birds live in pairs and they hunt together. So it might have been just for the night for this particular tree, but it's most likely to move on shortly. It's very nice, quiet and peaceful this morning. From far off distance, when I keep quiet now, you'll be able to hear a lot of different birds calling early in the morning. Don't know if you all heard that. Yeah, there's a hyena calling on a distance, but as we listen to the hyena and about to start off and carry on and see what we can get, I'm going to hand over to Trishala, who also needs to say good morning to you all this morning.
I have heard the typical, the Cape turtle doves going. I've heard the franklins, and there we have a crowned lapwing in the gorgeous sunlight. Trying to warm up like everybody is out here today. You can see it's quite puffed up. Being puffed up is a really good way to stay warm, like I described with the impalas. It can give you some insulation. Can you see it's tucking its head down? Every now and then into the ground. That's because it's looking for little insects. It especially likes little termites. just beautiful. There's lots of leopard tracks around, which means that we've got to get moving. So we're going to go a little bit more west. I see tracks of Tlalamba from last night around quarantine. There's tracks of Tingana. So we're going to go, Steve is going south and looking on that end, and I'm going to go west and we're going to check out that end. And that's how we work together to track, because then we can figure out where this leopard has gone and which direction to go in and which way to focus ourselves. Last night, Tingana ended up right in front of camp, near our camp sign. And I also had a very intimate visit from Swazi, the hyena, to my room. He came onto my porch and leaned against my glass door. In fact, I thought it was Steve who wanted to say something to me or wanted to talk about something, because Swazi had actually... Okay, Steve is just updating me that he's got some tracks heading straight down Philemon's cut line. I'm sure he'll tell you about them too. So Swazi came and knocked on my door. Quite literally. He put his nose on the door twice, so I went up, I opened the curtain, and he just looked at me through the glass and then began gnawing on a little warthog tusk that I found in his outside room. Alright, so we're going to keep on moving and now try to find these guys instead of just talking about them. So I'll send you over to Clive to say good morning. He's got some stripy friends for you.
Thank you, Trisha. Morning, everyone. Welcome to and Beyond Pinda Private Game Reserve. And we've managed to find some zebras. We've come out to this beautiful big open grassland here, which is obviously the favorite habitat for these zebras. It's exactly where they want to be, and there are lots of them here. We've got quite a big herd on our left and up ahead. I think what I'm going to do... Oh, sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Clive, by the way, and behind the camera today we have Marcel with his gloves on. It's a very, very chilly morning here on Pinda. I'm going to just move us up ahead. There's some giraffe close to the road. Some zebra close to the road. But there's also a giraffe a little bit up ahead, a little bit further than them. So let's move a little bit closer. It is in my maybe 4 years of being here, this is possibly one of the coldest mornings I've had. I won't lie. It is very cold. Oh, look at this. The zebra are even staying nice and close. They all have such beautiful markings on them. So please send through your questions. We'd love to hear from you and hear if you would like to know anything about these animals that we're seeing. And I think it's actually a really good opportunity for us to move a little bit up ahead and let's go to those giraffe. It is a really, really nice view. There's about 3 of them right in the road up ahead. So let's go across there quickly. So we've come out to this area here this morning to look for preferably a pride of lions, that this is all part of their territory. But there were reports of even 2 cheetah here yesterday, so we'll see. Either one will do. Whichever one we find tracks of first. Oh, the sun is just about to creep over the mountains on our right and hopefully start warming us up a little bit. There we go. Look at these 3 giraffe here. Carter, that's a very good question. You're asking what do we do in the middle of the day when we're not on the safari? It depends. Sometimes if we have to, we'll try and see if we can find some animals. Otherwise we just rest, and it's a good time to learn lots of stuff about these animals that we see all the time. What a really nice view of these giraffe. It's a little family of them here. So especially in these mornings when it's nice and cool, lots and lots of animals will make use of this time to feed. And as you can see, that's exactly what the one on the left is doing anyway. Feeding off of that little bush, that little tree there. Good morning, Sam. That's a very nice question. How to tell the age of a giraffe? All right, so if you look at the one on the left, Marcel, can you just follow us around? So the one on the left, firstly, if you look at the horns, they're very thin, firstly, and secondly, they've got a little patch of hair going all the way over, so we can tell that that's a female. That's how we tell that that's a female. If it was a male, there would be no hair on the top of the horns, and they would be a lot thicker. And with her being the biggest out of the 3, that's definitely a big adult giraffe. Now, a giraffe can live to about 25 years old, and this one, as they get older, they start losing condition. So they start having little patches of hair missing, sometimes scratches, lots and lots of ticks. And this one doesn't look like it has any of that. So she's still in very good condition, which means I would guess she's probably middle-aged, maybe in between 10 and 15, really prime age for a giraffe. And then the 2 that are in the road on the right-hand side, both look quite a bit younger. Remember I said the difference between the male and the female is the horns and the thickness of the horns. So if you look at the one on the left of those 2, it's got quite big, thick horns, and it's just starting to lose the hair right on top of those horns. So that one is a young male. Now when he is older, he's going to lose that black hair on top of the horns completely, and that's from fighting. I don't know if you kids have seen how these giraffe fight before. Maybe you've seen it on TV. But they stand next to each other and they swing their necks and they hit each other, which obviously then rubs the hair off of the top of the horns. But he's still young. He hasn't really fought too much. So I would put him probably at about 4 years old, at a bit of a guess. And I'd say the female that's next to him on the left, see, she's got much thinner horns and she's got that little tuft of hair going all the way over. I'd say she's probably around the same age. So they're both a bit younger. But that was a very good question. Thank you. Oh, the sun is just peeking over and probably warming these animals up nicely. It's going to be a really beautiful morning. Hi Tilly, you're asking how do giraffe know which one is their mom? They will know, firstly, all their patterns on themselves are different. Every giraffe is different. So they might be able to recognize each other like that, but it's probably more from smell. They will be able to smell which one is possibly their mom. And I guess growing up close by, close to the mother, they learn to see what she looks like. So that'll probably be how they can tell the difference. I'm just going to move a little bit forward again, because they're disappearing over this little crest. Oh, look at that though. They're walking in this beautiful morning light now. Wow, there's one bending down far to eat. Sam, there are quite a few animals that will, not too many that will hunt giraffe, but lions, like we said, we're going to come out to this area this morning to look for some lions. And there's a good possibility lions will hunt giraffe. But even recently it happened here where two male cheetah caught a very young giraffe. But a big one like this the cheetah wouldn't be a threat to a big giraffe like this. But lions, definitely. Amazing how they walk through these beautiful grasslands. If you look carefully, kids, while this giraffe is walking, watch how it moves both its left legs at one time, and then both its right legs at one time, and then both its left, then both its right. Oh, if you look just on the left as well, there's a few a few zebra walking into the picture too. So we've actually got 3 different types of animals right in front of us. Marcel, if you zoom on the right-hand side of the dead tree, see those buffalo in the distance? There's also a big herd of buffalo, all in those little bushes there. You got them, Marcel? Yep. Oh, look at the zebra chasing each other. Wow, there's a lot going on here this morning. Lots of animals out. Oh, Sam, you've got lots of questions for us this morning. I love it. Thank you. How do you tell the age of a zebra? Now, that is a very good question because they all look the same. I've never seen them look really, they don't lose condition with age. So once they reach that full size, which is probably when they're about 3 or 4, then you won't even be able to tell the difference in size. And after that, you can't really age them. So only if they're very young, you are able to age them. I think with them all moving down, I'm going to move the car a little bit forward again. Right, with this giraffe eating here, oh no, it's just moved off. You'll notice when we stop again how the zebra are sticking very, very close to the giraffe. And you can imagine the giraffe have got, because of their long necks, they've got such a good view out over this whole area, looking out for predators, and the zebra want to make use of that as well. Oh. Sorry. Sure. Now, obviously, with not too many trees in this area, these giraffe are maybe heading a little bit further to that little patch where there's lots of trees and lots of food for them. And the zebras are just following behind. Hi, Eric. 7 years old. That is a good question. Why are the giraffe walking different to the other animals? It's just the way they are. It's just the way they are built. All the animals will walk differently. There's, elephants walk differently to all the others. Giraffe, it's just their way of moving the two left legs and then the two right, and then the two left and then the two right. It's just very interesting, though. I'm going to go a little bit forward again. I keep moving down towards those trees there. Oh, let's see if we can get a nice view of one of these zebras here. Well, I think he's going to disappear from us. Yeah, there he's even running. Look at that. He's trotting like a horse. Right, while these zebras are trotting off into the distance, we're going to send you across to Trishala. She has a whole lot of tracks for you.
I do. I have so many tracks, and they all belong to lions. We are busy tracking our leopardess, whose tracks were around here too, but they didn't come out to this junction. So now we have all these lion tracks, which mean that the whole pride is walking somewhere around here. So Steve's going to go around, and I'm going to follow these tracks, and hopefully we'll be able to find them. Problem is, these tracks may be an hour old, they may be 10 minutes old, they may be 3 hours old. So we're just going to have to follow up and check. And that is our best bet at this point. But you can see there's quite a few. There's lots of cubs. And there's a few adult females in there too. I don't see any tracks of males. Male tracks are very large, and especially when you see them in comparison and next to other tracks, they're very, very easy to spot because they're so large. Hang on, Steve is talking to me. Let's see what he's got. Standing by. On Ballanite, he's heading west. Yay, so Steve is on the boundary road, the western boundary road, and we are going to follow these tracks. So hopefully we'll be able to find them. That would be awesome. But I know that Barney has already found something like what I'm trying to track, so let's go over.
Okay, we have one of the Ross males who we tracked for most of the morning yesterday. He's been calling for most of the evening. He's definitely searching for the rest of the pride and his brother. So looking at this big cycle that he did yesterday morning when we were busy tracking him, he hasn't seen the pride in the last 2 or 3 days. I'm gonna just reposition quickly. There's impalas up ahead of him. So He's approaching a beautiful open area with there's a lot of impalas. He doesn't look like he's ready to hunt. He's just busy in a mission, trying to find his brother. You're gonna hear or see these impalas now. Can you hear the sounds? I'm gonna switch off. Do you hear that sounds of impalas at distress calling? They've spotted this male as he walks through these open areas up ahead of us in his search of the rest of the pride. I'm gonna move around. Meg, this is one of the two brothers, the Ross males, that are the fathers of the cubs of the Birmingham Pride. So you can see he's not interested in these impalas whatsoever. He's completely avoiding them. His mission now is more to find the rest of the pride or his brother at the moment. Yeah. Ooh. Try and give you a wide berth there so you can have him for a while. You can still hear the impalas distress calling on the background, but you can see he is not looking back at all. So the direction that he's heading at, which is directly east at the moment, it's on the direction of where we last saw tracks of the pride heading the day before yesterday. It is a very nice morning for him still. Still nice and cold, as we talked about earlier on when we start. This kind of helps him to be able to cover as much distance as he wants without burning too much energy. Look at the dust he's kicking with his feet as he moved off the ground. You see the steam of dust blowing up. See what he's doing on the tree? Rubbing his face, tail up. Scent marking as he goes, busy marking his territory. Elise, an average pride number in this area will be anything between 7 animals all the way to 15. Anything more than 15 is considered a big pride. But the pride where this big male comes from, him and his brother, they've got 5 adult lionesses and 6 cubs and 2 new ones, and that's 8. So this Sikh is part of the big pride. Look at how he's standing with his head and nostril up in the air. Looks like he might have heard something. Putting his nostril down onto the ground, looking like he might have picked up sand, maybe of the whole pride where they might have come from a few days ago. The stronger the sand becomes, you might start to see him moving a little bit faster, trying to catch up with them as quickly as possible. Move. I think I'll get you another shot here. Can I stop? See how he's changed direction, doing the same thing he just did about a minute ago. Head up, ears pointing forward. Every now and again, you might hear him starting to vocalize again, as we heard earlier on. Something's caught his attention. See how he's standing still with one leg up in the air. Didn't want to make too much noise there. Let's try and stick with him as much as we can to see what he's got in store for us. It will be very nice if he can get his pride. I'm sure he will be excited, but that will be exciting for us too. So we're gonna keep up with this boy for a little longer. We're gonna hand you over to Steve, who is busy tracking the leopard, and see how successful he's gonna be. We're possibly gonna try and keep up with this mate for quite a while and see where he goes, because it will be nice if he can take us to where the rest of the pride is. And
Well, we've got entire pride tracks here in front of my feet. Can you see them, BK?
Got him.
All of these tracks. There's cubs, there's lions. It's very hard to count how many animals there actually are here. But these are tracks of a pride of lion heading in that direction. Now, they came on last night. We checked the other side, and they went out again. Trish is on more tracks over there. They came in again last night. Guaranteed. I don't know that these are as fresh as the ones I saw this morning, but it's a similar sort of route. And Trish is a little bit further up here checking. So we're going to jump back onto the boundary here and check that these lions haven't crossed out. If they have, maybe they've gone to Simbambili, which would be quite lovely. There's a watering hole there called One Eye Pan that I was at the other day and showed everybody some wonderful birds. So we like to do this, what we call a boundary patrol. I was following some tracks of a female leopard just before, and I bumped into the lion pride tracks. I was like, well, we've got to do this. We've got to find out where they are. And we've also got to stay nice and warm, everybody. Now, don't call me a sissy. We need to stay warm in winter in a hot water bottle. Keeps my hands nice and toasty. Okay, so Trish is just around the corner. She's checking the boundary. These tracks come here and go out, but they seem like they're from yesterday. The reason I say that is because this road has been wiped clean of them. And not too many people drive this road in the early morning. So, without me physically seeing it yesterday, that is my assumption. But Trish has gone straight past that junction, follow them to the next road. So, this is what we call a boundary. This is Arathusa on the left, Juma on the right. And so we utilize these boundaries to check if animals are coming in and out. Obviously, they don't see this as a boundary. But it is, for us, private land boundaries. So the animals will cross it. They don't care. They just go. But it's a nice, big, wide road to see tracks on. Whew! It's fresh. You might hear some very high-pitched squeaking noises. That's BK in the back being very cold. Hey, Beaks. I mean, it's not uncommon for the Nkuhumas to have gone all the way out and come all the way back on again. The pride of their size is searching for large prey animals, and if they find small animals like an impala or a kudu, it really doesn't go very far amongst them. I mean, we saw that, didn't we? They killed and ate a buffalo in less than one day. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Okay, very good. Well, I'm sure it's a lot colder over in Kalahari, so let's send you over to Dylan and see what he's up to.
Good morning again from a chilly Swallow Kalahari. Jean-Dre is always on camera there. My name's Dylan. It's great having you with us as always. It's just fantastic being out here again. Yeah, this morning is quite chilly. We went down to about -4, -5 this morning. And in fact, at the moment where we are now, we're right next to this big body of water that the edges haven't frozen, you know, because this big body of water retains its temperature quite well. And there's a bit of a lag, but there's a very good reason why we are so cold at the moment. You know, one would think, well, the coldest time, like early hours of the morning, but it's actually not. The coldest time is immediately after sunrise. So we've still probably got I'd say another 10 minutes to go before we actually hit it. What we've done this morning, we've put a little ice tray out just up here, but I don't know if it is going to freeze now, but we'll see, just out of interest. But the bird bath at my house this morning was just a solid block of ice. So, you know, I think the key reason there, just doing a bit of reading up on it, is that the sun's not warming the air, it's actually warming the ground, and then obviously going through the night just before dawn, you've gone through the longest period without sunlight, so the ground has just like lost its ambient temperature, it's just lost it. Now the sun's rays have to start heating the ground before it can actually start heating the air. So, and we're still a long way from getting any sun's rays out here. So Jean-Dre and I are like, no, we're not huddling for warmth, but we're not at that point yet. But yeah, it's quite nippy this morning, and I can feel it on the tips of my ears. So we're going to just keep moving around this area and seeing what we can get. It's going to be a fun day today. We have got no particular plan. There was some like a giraffe just around the corner here earlier, and we will see about the meerkats. One of our habituators, D, is now onto the meerkats to see if they're going to be up. I think temperatures like this, it's going to be a lot later. Elise, good morning. What is the animal that we see the most regularly on safari at Tswalu? Wow, there are lots and lots and lots. Pretty much any of these animals, you know, you can see, just depending. The key thing is when you go out with your guides, you know, you can say to a guide, listen, I would love to see aardvark, or I would love to see giraffe, or I'd love to see buffalo or impala, whatever it is, and then the guides will obviously make a huge amount of effort to try to find that. The fun thing on safari is that there's always that sense of excitement. Like, you know, you can go and say, well, I'd like to see impala, but you don't know if you're ever going to see it. You know, there's that expectation. And Jean-Dre and I were actually chatting about it this morning. So, you know, you go out, it's just not knowing exactly what you're going to find, which is kind of like that whole build-up. And when you do find it, whether it's an impala or a ground squirrel or a honey badger, you know, if we're really lucky, or leopards or lions or anything, there's just that like build-up to it. So yeah, I mean, we've got so many different things here. So it's difficult to say which is the most frequently seen on safari, because a lot of them you do see on a regular basis. But if you look at it like in groups, it would be your herbivores as generally, as a rule, that you'd be seeing more frequently, just because there's lots and lots of them, you know. And you know, you can say, well, if you're looking at vegetation, there's so much vegetation, and this sounds like dead obvious, but there's a point to it. you need lots of vegetation. They support lots of herbivores, and then your predator, they support in turn a smaller amount of predators, and then you get these little apex guys sitting right at the top like lions and spotted hyenas. So that's that old classic kind of like food pyramid. So in any environment, you're more likely to encounter your prey species, your herbivores, than other things. But in terms of the exact species which you'll be seeing, that really remains to see what the day holds for you. We're gonna go look at our ice tray, but I think that's still, we'll be lucky. I don't think I put it in the best place this morning, but we'll keep on doing it in the mornings. And head over in the meantime to Trish, who's actually following up on leopards, which will be quite interesting.
Hello everybody, we have some tracks. Firstly, let me send some warm vibes to Dylan, because -4 is just ridiculous. So we have some tracks, we're on the western boundary, and there's some tracks of the lions heading out. But the thing is, they have been kind of frequenting this route for a little bit. And these are not super fresh, but maybe the tracks that we were following were just from last night. With the cold weather and it wasn't windy at all, those tracks could stay looking fresh for quite some time. Plus, there are not many cars driving around, but this being a main road means that cars are driving all the time. So we're still going to check around a little bit. Hopefully we will find them. Steve and I are both working on trying to find them. But this doesn't bode too well for us and the lions. Maybe we should just listen for a little bit. Hi Sam, you'd like to know if all the guides on the show are from South Africa or South African? Yep, we all are. We have multiple locations. So our location here in Djuma, we are kind of like in the northeast of the country. Then we have other locations like Pinda that are in KZN, so it's just east, also the northeastern side, but a little bit lower than us. And the other locations like Pridelands and Ngala, they're quite nearby to us here. And Swalu, which is kind of central and north. So we're all down here in South Africa, yes. Can anybody hear anything besides Egyptian geese? That's all I can hear. Thank you, Rebecca. She says, my sweet voice and the sound of Egyptian geese. A great combination. Let's see what update Steve has for us. Standing by? Yeah, I saw the tracks you saw heading west. Yeah, I know what you mean, because they also don't look terribly fresh. There's some more further down as well. But again, heading west. Yeah, let's just do another loop, I think. Okay. Okay, copy. So, last night some vehicles were out after we turned in. Still seeing tracks though. Let's Let's just see. Let's show you some nice ones. So those vehicles could have driven over tracks. There's a nice one down there. It's very difficult without any sun to see them properly. But I promise they're there. But so were other vehicles out after we were out, and there are vehicles out in the morning. So they could have driven over it. They could still be fresh. They could have been from yesterday because, like I said, they're frequenting this particular route. Either way, we're going to go around and do a double check because we'd really love to see our Nkahuma Pride. Also important to listen for calls. But lions, they don't tend to be hiding or slinking away. They're very kind of steady in the way that they position themselves. They are not trying to hide themselves. So you would see them just sprawled. Problem is if they're sprawled in a space that's very thick, then we may not be able to see them, but I suspect they may be in this block. Well, let me go and send you over to Steve while I carry on here, and he can update you on what he's found on his side too.
Thanks, Trish. Yes, well, Trish and I are working together to figure out the anomaly of these lion tracks. But we try to show you. But the animals are all hiding. It is so cold, we haven't even seen a bird. The birds are all hiding, and now the sun is slowly starting to come over the horizon. They're all going to be sitting out going, ooh, warm me up like our little squirrel party yesterday. That was very funny. Okay, well, we can at least show you a giraffe track. I know we saw giraffe just a little while ago. So let's show you a giraffe track. It's very difficult to confuse a giraffe track with any other track, boys and girls, because it's so big. BK, I hope I haven't got the aerial in the way. How's this? Can you see this track over here? Look how big that is. Now, it's always important to put something down for measurement, and this knife of mine is 10 centimeters. Put it there. Look at the size of that track. It's more than 2 knives. Can you see in the middle? There's this line. And these are flat, which is indication that this is a hoof, and it's a cloven hoof, like a cow. So there's a hoof on one side and a hoof on the other side. In the middle, gets a little bit of sand. You shouldn't confuse a big giraffe track like this with any other animal. I mean, look, it's the size of my foot. That's ridiculously big. Not that my feet are ridiculously big, but giraffe tracks are. How big that is. And he's going in that direction. The weight pushes the soil down over there as he moves forward. Okay, so now this giraffe seems to be on his own. Giraffe, but big male giraffe.
So the interesting thing here is this is the ice tray that we put out earlier. And you can actually see, and I don't know how clear it is on the camera there, but you actually see the ice forming on top here already. Jean-André, I don't know if you can see that properly. So this is just an ice tray that we left out on the sand with it was just normal tap water, and there it's freezing over. And it's already, it's only like 7:30, yeah. So by 7:30 in the morning, this water is still busy freezing. So that's just out of interest to show you the incredibly tough conditions that Jean-André and I are surviving in. But we'll manage. That's pretty cool. So now we just needed to bring a gin and tonic with early in the morning. That would have That would have kick-started the day. But so temperature's a big thing out here in terms of animal survival. You know, anything. Those of you who have been following us for the past couple of weeks, you would have seen all those armoured ground crickets, those beautiful, big, long-legged crickets that we've been following up and down on trees and things. This kind of cold weather is not good for them. And as we're driving a little bit later, we'll see if we can find some that are still alive. But they normally climb up onto the tops of these bushes and tree stems to try and get a little bit of heat. But I think with these cold snaps coming through now like this, that's really not good for these little things. So a lot of animals do battle. We've seen the meerkats, how they're getting up progressively later and later and later in the mornings. But, you know, if you're a burrowing animal, you know, a meerkat, a Cape fox, a porcupine, spring hares, ground squirrels, all these things, but being able to get deep underground, in fact, just 30 to 40 centimeters underground, the temperature becomes very, very, very stable. So in these environments where you've got these extremes of heat and cold, burrows are absolute gold to be able to have. And, you know, that's just interesting. And here's some polar bear droppings. You'll notice these polar bear droppings. I'm just kidding. This is just ice from the ice tray when we emptied it out. So this ice has got nothing to do with this ice, I promise. But what is amazing is that we threw this ice out more than an hour ago, and it hasn't melted one single bit. So it just shows these ground temperatures. I mean, it's really, really getting cold there. So, all right, well, let's see if we can go find a big warm-blooded mammal. So Taylor May has just asked if, while we're watching the animals, if we can learn some survival things. Absolutely. If you want, we can do some of that as well. Some of it will be quite fun. Some of it will be dead obvious. But yeah. And I'm going to give you a tip that just sounds completely ridiculously obvious. But in this day and age, when you go on safari, we're talking about how cold it is. And people often get, oh, you know, if you can't go out too early in the morning, you know, game drive, you know, it's freezing cold. Well, you know, number one, dress warmly. I know it's stating the obvious, but it's like, and I'm a very bad example because half the time I go out, I'll complain about how cold it is, and yet I just like, you know, I'll be wearing shorts or I don't have enough jackets on. Dress warmly and your safari just goes to the next level of enjoyment. You don't want to go out and battle to operate your camera because your fingers are too cold, or you don't want to spend time looking at an animal because you're freezing. Dress warmly, and that's suddenly your entire safari experience becomes so much more enjoyable. There, tip number one. All right, well, let's leave our little ice tray, and we're going to go find some giraffe for you. There's a beautiful group just down the road over here I want to go have a look at. I was going to say something, but I'm not going to say it on camera. But I think in the meantime, let's head over to Taylor. I think she has some buffalo. All right, Chandra, stop laughing.
My mind is frozen, but I cannot believe how quickly that tray of water has frozen. I won't be complaining about the cold, and neither are the buffalo that we are looking at in the distance. But yes, welcome to Pridelands. Finally, I know we're often late start. We have been out early, I do promise. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Gert. And, well, yeah, we're very excited to be out and about in the bush. I'm going to drive up a little bit further ahead to these buffalo. I'll give you a quick update of what we've been doing. Is obviously yesterday morning was very exciting with the lionesses and chasing the leopard up the tree. We wanted to see if we could pick up on the lionesses, and we found their tracks. But it seems that they've done a couple of circles and it's quite difficult. So we gave it our best shot, but they seem to have moved northwest. So now we're going to head back into our old areas. And there's a whole bunch of Duggar boys moving around here. So I think we might as well have a look. Those lionesses are very hungry. Maybe they have caught something just a little bit around here. But we'll get closer to these buffalo. I'm just going to go up to them slowly. I'm sure they're also just waking up this morning. But just remember to please send your questions questions through hashtag WildEarth or comments on the various social media platforms. I'm going to stop here. There's about 3 or 4 of them, but we'll have a... No, don't go off the road. But there's one more coming, so it's okay. So those 2 big boys, probably some of the bulls that we watched yesterday morning, in fact. They've been sticking around. And here comes another one about to cross the road. It's been so good to see all the buffalo around. They're actually heading right towards the eco-training camp. They might be going down for a drink, so we'll see if we can follow them. Mike, I think yes. Some animals are lucky enough to die of old age. Obviously, as you suggested, the prey species, so the sort of the herbivores, I don't think that they quite live to their sort of maximum years. Oh, there's another bull about to come out as well. However, something like a buffalo that normally lives in a big herd and has got big horns, you know, to protect themselves, I think that they could reach a fairly old age. I mean, they don't live for very long or much longer than an impala, but they can get to just over 20 years old or so. Here comes the next big old bull. And occasionally we've seen some buffalo where their horns are completely worn down. They actually don't even have those little the curves on them. They've almost snapped off and rounded and blunt and yes, if you just realize we're here. So I think if anything's going to live to quite old, it's a buffalo. And then not so long ago, or maybe a little while ago, some of you may remember, and it would be great if you could share some screenshots, at the Djuma camp, and I'm sure Steve can tell you stories about this, there was a bushbuck that used to live in the camp, in the Djuma Research Center camp, and she was so old, she was almost completely grey in colour, and it also looked like she had something wrong with her mouth, like she had like a bit of a dislocated jaw, but she was really, really old. Probably the oldest bushbuck I've ever seen in my life. But I don't know if she's still around. But that was great. So I'm sure Steve will share some more stories about you. But it's not common. I think you've got to be very, very lucky to see something like that. I'm now just in 2 minds whether I reposition or if these boys continue feeding in our direction. It could be quite nice. What is that? Please stay there. You know, every time I look around, I keep thinking that I can see lions, but they're not lions in the grass. It's just these logs that look like lions. I think it's because I want to see them so badly. And the oxpeckers, of course, not doing too much feeding right now. They're just keeping nice and warm. Very exciting stuff from Pinda. It seems as though Barney has actually got a lion, and he's staring right at it.
Yeah, we have followed this line across the Timbavati riverbed. He was still on his mission and we're hoping that he was going to take us towards the Pride. He is now lying down in the long grass. It looks like this might be it for the day for him. And as we were sitting with him here, we could hear some bushbuck alarm callings along the riverbed. Remember at the start of the drive, we talked about leopard tracks and jackals. And looking at the fact that the view is not great, we're thinking of leaving him lying down here for now, go investigate the other area where the distress call came from. It sounds like a little bit further west. He looked slightly up there. He gets up again and carry on with his mission. Seems like he doesn't want us to leave him. So we will then maybe follow him and see where he lies down and maybe go follow up on that distress call later on. The good thing about keeping up with him right now, we haven't seen the Pride in 2 days, and we don't know where they are, but following him, this might be our best bet. He might lead us to where the rest of the Pride is. So we're going to keep up with him for a while and see where he takes us. Happy with that, oh? Nick, you coming?
You okay?
I managed to relocate this male and he's up and mobile again. You guys are do you mind standing in there for a while and see if I lose him or if he lies down? I'm gonna come back that way.
Okay, Kobe, yeah, we've just lost him for now. I think he's just gone down and lay down in the thick area, but we'll see if we can relocate him again. I'll keep you updated.
Copy. Okay. Gonna need to maneuver properly here. There's a donga there that won't be able to cross if we try to go here. But I think it's gonna join the power lines. So as we try to maneuver around to get to see if we can find this main line again on his mission, we will link you over to Dylan at Swallow. It sounds like he's got something tall and exciting for you to see. So we'll be handing you over to Dylan.
Sorry about the technical issues there, everybody. These things happen, unfortunately. Trying to bring you a live broadcast from the middle of the African wilderness. Okay, so things are getting confusing. These lion tracks have met up with the lion tracks of yesterday. And so it's hard to tell which ones are the fresh ones. So, we're going to keep going. And still trying to find your bird. As I said, though, the birds are sleeping. Birds are sleeping. Some of those tracks are from yesterday. The reason I can tell that they're from yesterday, let's see if we can show you. Can you see them, BK? You can't see them. That doesn't help. The reason you can tell it's from yesterday versus some of the other tracks that we had, you'll be able to see it now if I jump off. Now have a very close look on the ground over here. I've got tracks here of a bird. Can you see this bird walking here? It's a dove. And the lion tracks are here. Here's a lion track. And there is a genet track on top. A genet walk at night. But over here, the bird is on top of the lion track. Okay. So you want to know about the foot structure of the dove. Well, doves, this might actually be a starling. Can you see how long that back? This is a Birchall starling. Can you see we've got 1 toe, 2 toes, 3 toes? There's the back toe. So we talk about passerines and non-passerines, but a starling is not actually a passerine. It's a near passerine. The nest in a hole in the cavity, but 3 toes on the floor versus this is a corsa over here. And the corsa looks like a little snow angel. And there's a snow angel with the arm, and the toe. You can't see any back toe. It's been removed. But to have a starling walking over the lion track means that this lion track was yesterday. Because a starling are sleeping still. They're not active right now. They're still hiding in their holes. Doves and starlings have been walking all over these lion tracks. So some of them aren't fresh. I'm going to go back to where I thought I might have had the tracks. Trish picked up tracks coming this side, so we've jumped ahead. But I'm going to go back. The problem is when lions move like this, it can be quite tricky to follow. But one thing's for sure, there's no cubs in amongst this. And the tracks that we found earlier. Originally had lots of cubs with them. Hunting lions can be quite tricky, but one thing's for sure, the hyenas have been all over them. Hyenas are following them very closely. Ah, very good. Well, an animal that seems like the lions are trying to catch is the Cape buffalo. And if you don't know what that looks like, Taylor's going to show you.
We're still with the bulls. And who knows, maybe those lions that you're trailing were trailing some buffalo too. That's definitely what the females' tracks that we saw earlier this morning were doing. But I don't think that it was this herd that they were following. But they just... Sorry. Now, I love buffalo when I get to watch them from a vehicle, and I particularly enjoy hundreds of buffalo. It's quite something to see them move around. Budweiser, I have indeed been charged by a buffalo too many times. I had a not so nice encounter actually while I was working for WildEarth a couple of years ago, and we were doing rehearsals for I think it was a Nat Geo TV show or something like that, but we weren't streaming live to everybody. And I was helping James Henry, and he'd asked me if I could try and find him some content. So I went looking out for an insect. This was my early days of working with WildEarth. And we had just warned everybody in Camp 2 that you need to walk around with torches at night. And it is very important when you're in the bush. You cannot walk around with your cell phone light. That's not sufficient. And we need torches. And there's a buffalo that was coming into camp. It's hungry. It was a drought. Anyways, next day, out in the open, probably less than 100 meters from camp, I found a velvet ant, and I was very proud. I'm going to give it to James. You can put it under the microscope. And something said, stop and look up. And I stopped and looked up. And there was a big buffalo like this one that we're looking at, basically staring me in the eyes. But we both got a fright because we both just realized that one another were there. He had his head dragging down on the floor, and I was, of course, making sure my velvet ant didn't sting me and also fall off, and then I lost my content. So I had nowhere to go. There was no bushes. The only shrub that there was the big guarri bush that was behind the buffalo, and I was very close to him. Anyway, so we kind of stood there, we looked at one another, and then it just basically happened, where he decided that he was not quite happy with me being around, and he chased me. Another thing that we always tell people is to not run, but I had nothing else. I had nowhere to climb, I had no bush to try and get behind, and I was very, very close to this buffalo, probably 10 meters away. And maybe a little bit no, it was very close. So I sprinted in the opposite direction to basically where the tent was. We used to do these we had like a little studio in a tent with all sorts of artifacts and a microscope and all that, and I sort of ran and shouted very colorful words at James and David, that I was being charged by a buffalo. The poor velvet ant got thrown into the air with my Leatherman, my multi-tool. And then somehow I managed to dive out of the way, and the buffalo just missed me. But then he death stared at all of us now in this tent, and we basically said, okay, well, if he charges us now, we dive out the back of the windows and just make a run for it for camp. And then, then you thought, nah, he's sick of it, and then he bucked and bronked all the way down into the drainage line away from us. So that was probably one of the scariest situations that I've had on a buffalo encounter on foot. And honestly, most of the times these kinds of things happen around camps because you become very complacent. Most guides will tell you a story of a close encounter with an animal on foot, and it was because they just weren't concentrating, because we do forget how easily accidents can happen. I mean, here at Eco Training, I'm sitting right at the Eco Training camp. It's just about 50 meters from where these buffalo are on the other side of the drainage line. We had male lions in camp, and then on the one side, on the western side of camp, and on the eastern side of camp, we had 3 leopards. So, they regularly come through here. And as dry season continues, buffalo and elephants are going to start hanging around water. With a big dam in front of camp, what animals like to follow buffalo around? Lions. We're going to have some epic sightings, I reckon, in the next month or so, which is going to be great. I'm actually really excited for it. So Moral of that story, always have your wits about you and always walk with a torch. Right, off you go to Tswalu, and I think they're still desperately trying to warm up.
Yeah, I've just been listening to Taylor and Trishala talking about being on foot and how careful one should be. That's very, very good advice. In terms of our question earlier about, survival techniques, is, we can go into all these like weird and wonderful things like how to make fire and how to catch a thing in a pitfall trap and that, but there's no substitute for just plain vigilance and common sense. Although I think common sense is a bit of a misnomer, that term. That backlighting on these giraffe is sublime. Oh, I'm joking with Chandra, I'm calling him backlight now. So if we get something, we've got to look for the backlight. But for those of you who are interested in photography, that's the kind of shot that you're looking for. Summer, who's 8, has just said it's hard to tell if it's a male or a female giraffe from so far away. Summer, you're 100% correct. We've got the unfair advantage of being on the ground here, and I've got a nice pair of binoculars, so we can see. And again, it's difficult looking at it through a camera like that and saying, well, because you don't have an idea of scale of the size of that animal. We saw it very clearly in the open earlier, so we could see very clearly that it is a female. And if you can see, sorry, our monitor's just off at the moment, but Genre zooms in there, you can actually see those horns, what are actually called ossicones on top. Have actually got hair, little pointy spikelets of hair on the very, very tops of them. And that's a nice indication that that's a female. It could be a very small one, but it's unlikely. Chandra, are you able to get a view of this small one further to the right over here? Then you can actually see that little one there has also got hair on the very, very tops, but that one actually looks like that's a young giraffe, so it's much, much, much smaller. So I'm just climbing off here, a little bit of movement. It's much smaller than the one that we've just been looking at, and that's a little male, that one. So I'm looking underneath at all the working parts as well as the hair on top. But the point I wanted to make here is on the young giraffe, they've all got hair on the hair tufts on the tops of those ossicones. Whereas adult giraffe, the males are bald on top, and the females have got those tufts of hair. To animals this side, we're talking about the cold temperatures and that. Animals this size, they've got a relatively small body surface area compared to the mass of the animal, which means that they generate a lot of heat and they don't lose that heat as easily as something very small. So something small like the meerkats that we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks, they can lose heat incredibly quickly in cold conditions like this. So they really need to be eating a lot, and not just a lot, but a lot of high quality food. Whereas big ungulates like this, they can be feeding on relatively low quality browse. But speaking of browsing, it brings us to another point. Yesterday, some of you viewers, you guessed correctly in terms of the old bird being an Archaeopteryx, and then I made a mistake well, not a mistake. I just, it looks like a bird, that's actually living day, and I couldn't get the name. So Roshini Peshavari, who's from Kenya, actually helped me out in a huge way yesterday, and she said it's a Hoatzin, Hoatzin. It's a bird that stays in South America. I've never seen one, but there's lots of lovely literature available on the internet on the species. And that bird has got a lot of similarities to the Archaeopteryx. So that's the one I was trying to think of. But have a look at that, the Hoatzin, Hoatzin. and it's got some really, really, really cool adaptations, but they're not actually directly linked. But speaking of birds, I think head back over to the Lowveld, and one of our colleagues has got a really cool bird that's not dissimilar looking to the Hudson.
Well, we found a bird, everybody, back on Djuma. Now, we found where the fresh tracks of those lions met yesterday's tracks, and then they have gone directly west. So it looks like the lions have gone west. We'll maybe follow up this afternoon on Simbambili to see if they're there. But for now, promised you some birds, and here we've got one of the coolest of the savanna birds, called a go-away bird. I know it sounds quite horrible, the name, but it goes quang, quang. BK, down on the bottom right of this bush, there's a crombeck. Can you see it? Oh, he's got into the bush now. The birds are waking up. There's a long-billed crombeck that was jumping around. Bex, can you repeat that? You asked what pest birds? Did you say pest? I didn't get that, sorry. I'm sure we'll hear shortly. Rocky, on Djuma, I haven't yet seen the infamous Indian miner, or now commonly known as the common miner. But they have been recorded on Arathusa and outside the gate, and they are becoming a conservation problem. It was actually mentioned to me a few months ago. Someone asked me, and I hadn't seen an Indian miner, and some of the viewers had showed screenshots of when we'd actually seen them on the outskirts and on the sort of far-reaching edges of these reserves. But that it would be the major pest. It would be the naturalized common miner. It was imported from India in the late 1800s, at the turn of the century. It's a bird that's able to mimic and to make all sorts of talking sounds. And people brought them across, obviously, and a few individuals got released in places like Durban, in Natal, and I think even in Johannesburg. And now, if you go to any of the big centres in South Africa, they are all over the place. They're related to the starling. They're very similarly related, but they're highly aggressive birds, and they outcompete all of our indigenous birds. So Indian miners are a conservation problem in South Africa. But for the most part, in areas where the environment is still very natural, where there's not too much alteration, you'll find that it's very difficult for invasive plants as well as animals to actually move in, because the natural order of things in that environment is to be quite stable. And it's very difficult for something to invade. But it is happening all over the place, in places that have been influenced in certain degrees. But out here in the Kruger, many of those sort of animals or birds can't compete with the strength of the animals and birds that occur within the park. For now, that is. But our go-away bird, many South Africans will remember the name that it used to be called a lory. Don't have it left. Africa, all the lories have
Grooming one another, which I've never seen. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Seems as though there was a little bit of a problem, but not to worry. We are still here with the Buffalo Bulls. We actually witnessed some interesting behavior with those three on the right-hand side of the screen. Something that I don't think that I've ever seen before. But they were huddled up next to one another, and they were actually grooming each other. So they were just licking and nudging one another very nicely. And it's just something I haven't really seen. Look there, you see? Perhaps they're really close friends. But it was just something that I haven't really exhibited with Buffalo Bulls before. But I suppose we always see sort of strange things. But the three of them all stood together licking one another's faces, which I thought was quite nice. We normally see allo grooming, so where animals will groom one another with females and their youngsters, or if it's quite a close bond between females, they'll groom one another. Here, look at what's going on. But I haven't specifically seen it with buffalo bulls. And it's really, really important to reassure those bonds between the animals. But here we go. Yes, Liz, there is indeed a difference between the African or Cape buffalo that we see and the water buffalo. Those buffalo the bulls don't get as massive sort of horns, and they don't get that big boss, that shield on the tops of their heads that you see with these big males. They're also slightly smaller in size, and as the name suggests, I actually have some really awesome photos. I'd love to be able to show you one day of water buffalo and just their general behavior. They really do spend a lot of time around water, and they submerge themselves completely, that you'll often just see their noses, their sort of muzzles sticking out of the top of the water, and nothing else really, and occasionally their horns. So otherwise they look fairly similar. They don't seem to get as big and bulky as the Cape buffalo do, but I just find that their general behavior is so much different. So we know that the African buffalo like to spend time during the day wallowing around in mud, but like I said, the water buffalo become submarines, and it is really, really interesting to see. I'll try and share some of those images with you at some point. I was very lucky to spend some time in Sri Lanka, and I got to watch the buffalo. They didn't seem to be as aggressive as well, I noticed. Their temperament was, in my opinion, a lot more calm than these misunderstood Dugger boys that we see here in Africa. And water buffalo in Asia, that's quite a big thing. But I say this, and normally not anybody can just walk up to a herd of buffalo, but and typically it'll be the herder, the man who owns the cattle. He can go in and bathe with his herd of buffalo and do all those things, but no one else will sort of be tolerated. And I was very nervous one morning while in the small town of Kataragama, which is just outside Yala National Park. I went for a run, and the big herd of water buffalo came, walking past. They were just obviously doing their rounds, but there was no one with them, and I was terrified. I sort of just stood next to a tree, and they all looked at me as they walked past. This was a domesticated herd, though, but I still was not trusting them. I thought, no, not a chance. Just like I wouldn't take any chances with these bulls. But I suppose that they've joined up with one another. They obviously rely on keeping each other safe, so maybe they will be a bit more social. So if you look at these buffalo, I mean, these bulls are actually not in too shabby condition. There's one that's slightly thinner, but they've got nice hairy coats. Now, Shika, sorry, apologies if I mispronounced your name there. They don't necessarily go grey. I'm sure some of them get a couple of grey flecks in their coats, but what happens is that the hair actually starts to thin out quite a bit. And they're not, you can see these boys have got nice sort of lush coats, well, as hairy as what a buffalo is, and it typically starts to wear out a little bit. But I suppose it must also depend on genetics. It's like with humans, not all people end up getting grey hair, or some get grey hair earlier than others. So you can see sort of slight grey flecks. That old bushbuck that I just told you about, that used to live around the Djuma Research Centre, where Steve and the rest of the Djuma crew live, she, like I said, she got grey hair. Quite a bit on her, but I've also seen other old animals and they've just been normal sort of coloration. But this was really lovely to see these boys sort of being so social with one another and actually paying some attention. This is so precious. Right, I think we'll head off from our buffalo now. Off you go back across to Phinda. It seems that big male lion is on the move.
Yeah, we followed this line through thick bush. He seemed to be focused on heading on a specific direction. As you can see him heading straight towards the vehicle now. He every now and again drops his head down, looks like he's got the scent of the rest of the pride. But we haven't heard much. You can see how he's focused and staring on a distance. So he walks, stop and look around. The weather is still pretty cool. We're not long on the 6th or the 7th from like early this morning, but maybe we're around 10, 11 degrees. So it's still cool enough for him to carry on moving. So we're going to try and stick with him. Same plan, hoping that he's going to lead us to where the rest of the pride is. Look at how big are those paws as he approaches his closer. You can see how he's moving parallel to us now. No worries in the world. Focused into his mission. Again, staring off on a far distance. Looking around. You can see he's got some few scars on his face, on his right side. He's not looking too hungry, but he could do with a little bit of food. You can see that overhanging skin underneath his belly there. It's lying down. I think this is going to be a temporary lie down because it's in the sun. Yeah, Dambi, the lions have got few different calls that they use. Overnight, when we heard this lion calling from a distance, he was roaring the loudest, trying to communicate with the pride, thinking that they're too far, which I think that is the case. But if he thinks that the pride might be close by, there's another call called a low tone call, where he doesn't call to the loudest. And that way he's hoping that if the pride is up nice and close, that they can respond to him, in particular his brother. But right now, he has been every now and again trying that low tone call, but with no response, which that leads into desperation. It's already getting warm this morning, that he might just find a shady spot and lie down. That if he doesn't find the pride this morning, there is a good chance that by this evening, that he might start calling louder to try and communicate. The rest of the pride might not necessarily respond back to him, but his brother will if he gets to hear him. So, yeah, we'll see what he does from now on. Okay, so this line is temporarily lying down for now, so I'm going to hand you over to Clyde to actually get to see the females and the rest of the pride on his side, while we stick with this guy and hoping that this guy might take us across to where the pride is if he gets up again. So, handing you over to Clive at Pinda.
So, for now, we can just see this adult lioness, and then behind her, just to the right, there are two of her youngsters, which we can't see well. They are quite flat down in the long grass. And even this lionesses as well. And I think because it's so icy cold, and because it's very windy today, I think they're just taking a bit of currently we're having a few little technical issues. We're going to send you back through to Barney with that male lion.
Sorry, guys. I'm sure we'll get to that feedback in a moment, but we are sitting here with some wildebeest that are slowly moving off and away from us. And they're also just enjoying the sunlight and the lovely lush green on this side of the world. We are on Rebecca's Road. Watching them. And everyone seems pretty relaxed. Now, we did do a very long tracking exercise with the lions, and unfortunately they have indeed moved out. But we can say that they tried to hunt some buffalo. At least that's what the tracks tell us, around Impala Plains, Impala Road. And Steve and I tried very hard to find them, but unfortunately they're not on Djuma. Beautiful. They are very pretty antelope. And a lot of them would have been mating, especially towards the beginning of winter, when they try to synchronize their mating so that they can also synchronize that birthing portion at the end of the year when everything is very nice and wet. Wildebeest love water, and of course the resources are abundant, such as the grass that they love. That's a similar strategy to what impala have, and that is to kind of saturate the whole area with their calves so that more calves survive the predators that are around. Okay, well, Steve has many guinea fowls. Let's go over and see just how many.
Thanks, Trish. Well, we have indeed found many guinea fowl. We've got a whole herd of guinea fowl here. And they are busy scratching out a living. You've heard the term, to scratch out a living, haven't you? It's to really dig deep in your pockets and to pick up whatever you can to survive. And guinea fowl, like chickens, are very good at doing that. Very important from an ecological point of view. They feed on a lot of seeds. The seeds go through their crop, through their digestive system, and then deposited further away, so they're very good at distributing seeds. But they also feed on a lot of insects when the time is right. But this time of year, they feed on mainly underground vegetation, corms, seeds, bulbs. They'll feed on organic material from elephant dung. But look at them, pecking. They're a very important food source as well. They feed many of the large raptors, and many of the smaller predators will actually switch to guinea fowl when times are tough when it comes to food, because guinea fowl actually do quite well in droughts, whereas a lot of the other animals tend to decrease in number, and guinea fowl increase. So they're a very important buffer food, which can supplement the diets of our cats, leopards, serval, wildcat. Can't say I've yet seen a lion catch one, but when times are tough.
Steve for Chris.
Hello, butterfly. They'll find a tree and they'll all jump up into the tree and just perch there, quite precariously, to be fair. They're not the best perchers, but like chickens, they elevate themselves off the ground and they try to find somewhere just off the ground to protect them against predators. Obviously, we've got the nocturnal predators in the form of owls, as well as genets and cats that will be looking to catch a guinea fowl. And then early morning, down they come to feed, as they are daytime feeders, moving around in the mornings and moving into the shade as well as it gets a little bit hotter. This is, those who are unaware, the helmeted guinea fowl. And just to the right, BK, there's a crowned lapwing. Just to the right, there we go. There is the kivit. Dizzy, how many vicious chickens have you met in your life? Male guinea fowls do get quite territorial over their chicks, over their females. But, I mean, it's a different story altogether. When you look at chickens, chickens have been bred. When you look at viciousness of chickens, I think a lot of that's been with regards to the breeding that's taken place. Guinea fowl are species specific, and amongst themselves, yes, they do get quite sort of territorial, but it's a different affair altogether. They are not vicious towards humans. They run at the first sight of danger. You can see there's an adult right with a youngster next to it. You see the difference in their head. There we go. Scratch, scratch. Very important for turning the soil, everybody. Not only are they feeding on seeds, they're also scratching and breaking the surface so that seeds will be able to germinate. A pair of 2 guinea fowl can go up to 20 very quickly. And here in the foreground, BK, we've got a red-billed hornbill busy feeding just here before this apple leaf. Oopsie. There is a red-billed hornbill doing what we call leaf flitting or sifting. Now these birds are no need to migrate, the birds that you're seeing. So many organisms, you just go and have a look in your garden. You put down some leaves or some mulch, turn the mulch over, and you'll find lots of insects. And so the hornbills sift through the leaves, and not leaf flitting, that's when they wash themselves in the leaves, leaf sifting. And they're turning over the leaves to look for insects underneath. So very specialized behavior. And there we go, like popcorn. Okay, everybody. Well, Taylor has got something as well to show you. Let's quickly rush over to her.
We do, Steve, we haven't moved off from these buffalo yet. We're actually really enjoying them this morning. So what we are now fascinated by is this oxpecker, this red-billed oxpecker, and this very tolerant old buffalo bull. We'll watch what he does in a minute. See, there he goes. He's snuck onto the right-hand side of the buffalo's face and is enjoying all of those little mites and tick larvae and all of those goodies that are just living in there in the buffalo's little crevices. He was right up in his nostrils earlier too. I think he's just enjoying the sun now. There we go. Ooh, delicious. Got a tick. So I think it's quite phenomenal how the oxpeckers are able to hold onto the animals' coats. So they haven't got particularly long legs, for example, like a hornbill that's got slightly longer legs, and they've actually got quite short legs, but they've got very, very sharp claws. And they're able to cling onto the coats. And then I don't know if you've ever watch them how they use their tails as well. Let's see. Come back around, oxpecker. Please do what you're being told to do. And those tail feathers go very, very stiff. And I definitely think that helps support the bird as it is clinging on. Look at that. Amazing. You wouldn't find a starling or a fork-tailed drongo being able to move around on its back like that. And now you can also see how hairy a buffalo is, because you don't often get these great close-ups, and they look like they do have quite smooth coats, but there's a fair amount of hair on that buffalo. It's quite coarse. Something else that's been fascinating that, again, with technology we've been able to work out is that people with these sort of camera traps that they set out in the bush have been capturing images of oxpeckers not doing what they're supposed to do at night. So instead of them going to roost in their natural cavities and, in the hollow of a tree, they've decided that actually we're just going to stick onto the animals. And it's been captured a fair amount on giraffe, where they'll actually cling onto the inside of a giraffe's back legs and then just sort of roost there and sleep for the night. So I think that's quite special. It's so clever. I can only imagine that obtaining the warmth from the buffalo is a more effective way to sort of to keep warm rather than living in a tree hollow. But there's a starling just to the right of that oxpecker on that branch that is perched next to the buffalo. Can you see it? Just down there to the buffalo that's on the right-hand side. There's a stick across its leg. To the left-hand side of the screen. No, go up. Not that one. There's another one. Go up left, other left. There we go. So the stick here, right by that buffalo's front leg. There we go. So I'm just helping Gert find it. There we go. Now, it's not going to jump onto the buffalo, but it is most likely going to try and catch some insects that are disturbed. But when I was working in the Eastern Cape, unfortunately, the red-billed oxpecker populations were eradicated due to a pesticide. And what I did see that was quite miraculous was watching Cape glossy starlings not quite hover, because we don't really have true hovering species of birds, barring the pied kingfisher and the black-shouldered kite, but would momentarily be able to keep itself still enough, and it would actually pull ticks off of the giraffe, which I thought was quite fascinating to see. I've never seen it anywhere else. So it's like they fulfilled the symbiotic relationship with the mammal species that oxpeckers would normally do. But I think it's been more than 10 years now that the oxpeckers have been reintroduced successfully on a game reserve called Shamwari in the Eastern Cape, and now most of the reserves between Grahamstown and Port Elizabeth are seeing oxpeckers again. But here, there's no problem. Yellow-billed oxpeckers and red-billed oxpeckers, of course, thrive. The bird's done eating now, again, just preening the feathers. Obviously got enough parasites to keep it going, and it has an opportunity to take a bit of a break. I suppose work never stops, hey, for either of these mammal species. Constantly got to keep cleaning, constantly got to keep their coats clean. It's quite lovely. Something I've never thought of, Dizzy, is the feces of the oxpeckers beneficial to the animal's hide. I don't think so. I don't think that there is any type of formic acid that is maybe in the feces that could be helping keep parasites at bay. I'm actually not sure. No, I don't think so at all. And buffalo hide is super, super tough. But no, that's an interesting question. I think it just sort of adds character to the buffalo, really. Sometimes, not so much with the oxpeckers, but when you do see bigger birds like cattle egrets that like to sit on top of on elephants, on buffaloes, on rhinos, as they sort of move around, the larger mammals, when they definitely defecate, you notice a white streak all the way down their fur. So that happens. But I don't think that the oxpecker feces will bother them too much. Now you can actually see those stiff feathers quite nicely on the oxpecker that's sitting in the middle of the buffalo's head. Oh, of course, he's just dropped down. Please come back up. No, he's going to go around. And also, if you look at this buffalo, sorry, I know I'm jumping through topics here. His left eye, looks like he's got a cataract. So I don't know if it can see so well out of that eye anymore. And out of all of them, it's actually the most relaxed and it's the most focused on us. The others have all moved off, but he's still sort of here looking at us. And this, of course, is something that probably just comes with age. I don't think that eye is functioning very well anymore. Off he goes with the rest of the herd. Speaking of dung, feces and scat, as we've been doing a lot of this morning, Steve has taken it upon himself to now show you some.
Thanks, Taylor. Well, it wasn't hard to find this one. It was like a speed bump in the road. A really big elephant poo. Right here. Now, quite interestingly, you can see how large it is compared to me. Isn't that a big pile of poo? Sorry about that Game Drive radio. You probably can hear it there on the ambient mic. I do apologize. But this is elephant dung, most likely from a bull by the size of it. You can see that this was one big ball. This was a ball here. And this was a number of balls. But you can see that it's actually been broken up already. Not hugely, but animals have come through and broken up. And if I take a piece, look there. There is an entire leaf. You see that, BK? Entire leaf. And then here there's a stick, bark or stick. Now, that's a big elephant. Probably an oldish sort of guy. Started to sort of wear down the teeth slightly, but still in good condition. And inside here, even if I dig, it's very, look at the stick here. Look at that. Entire branch has gone through there. So elephants will feed and their digestive system is really, really quite bad. So in here is loaded with microorganisms and bacteria that goes through a fermentation process in the elephant's enlarged cecum, which is probably similar to what our appendix was used for once upon a time. It's off of the small intestine. There's this really large chamber that all of this goes into, and fermentation takes place. That's why zebras, hippos, rhinos, elephants have so much gas and are very flatulent. If you've ever ridden a horse, you'll notice that they do fart a lot. It's from the gas inside the body, especially when they gallop. Okay, so look, it's still very moist in here. There's an entire ecosystem going on inside. And what the guinea fowls often do, especially in the sort of summer months when this is mainly grass material, they will scratch it and look for the actual grass material that they'll eat, that fermentation. And even in human diets these days, eating fermented foods is seemingly a very healthy way to go from a diet point of view, because it's basically inoculating your system with gut enzymes and bacteria, which help to break down everything inside. And so many animals will utilize this. Fly larvae, beetle larvae, many, many things will be here for the elephants. And all the elephant's done is had a poo, but it's an ecosystem unto its own. So, everybody, if you find yourself driving on Game Drive, anywhere in the Kruger or wherever you might go, don't drive over these balls, because these balls are basically a city of little organisms, and driving over them, unfortunately, you're just going to squash them and kill them. So, drive around. Watch out for the dung beetles. Okay, well, it seems like Trish has got onto the bandwagon of birds this morning. Let's quickly send you over to her.
It is. It's a very beautiful lilac-breasted roller. Also a little puffed up, trying to get as much heat as it can. Poor thing. It's sitting a beautiful marula that's lost most of its leaves. And it is watching the circus down below. It is a hornbill circus. On that termite mound. Hornbills and crowned lapwings around this termite mound. Oh, there must be lots and lots of termites there. Just picking them off, are you? Often birds will work together, especially if they're after similar things. Yellow-billed hornbills after invertebrates, and so is the lapwing. And what ends up happening is obviously each species can't get everything. Oh, bit of a fight. Can't get everything that it flushes out. So other birds or even other creatures will hang around and try to take advantage of what the birds flush out. There's a red-billed hornbills, a yellow-billed hornbills. You'll see that the yellow-billed hornbill has a bit of a larger, more robust beak. And the red-billed hornbill has a slightly smaller, thinner, narrower beak. So even though they're after similar things, one can take advantage of a larger invertebrates and the other one can get its beak into little holes, just like it's doing right there. These are quite a few hornbills, I must say. We see them all over the place. They're very common. But this is the most I've seen on one eyeful. See 6. I saw something very interesting just happen as I was talking about how birds will interact with each other. That lilac-breasted roller just jumped down into the ground, also looking for invertebrates. And then the hornbill saw it do that and then flew right across. And you can see they've left that mound. And they're on this grass now where the lilac-breasted roller had touched down. As the grass is starting to get drier, the insects that would normally be protected by that thick cover will now be exposed to the benefit of these birds. Thomasy, you'd like to know if termites would move if their mound is frequently fed on. They wouldn't, and that's because they have a lot of control over their mound, so they can just block certain entrances if they feel that there's too much bird activity going on. But also with all populations of animals, and even plants and trees, there's a certain amount of a population that needs to be fed on. That's how the whole ecosystem works. So there would be an amount that is by the termites that they're willing to kind of give up. And really, there wouldn't be a problem if they ate a certain percentage of that mound's population. And there would be a problem in the ecosystem or a particular scenario or situation that maybe causes more than the average amount of termites to be eaten in that mound. Maybe there's a drought and there's nothing else to eat or something like that, and those would be exceptional circumstances, and that's when you start to get population decline. You don't see that so much with termites because they're so numerous, but that's how it kind of works with the larger animals. For example, if you have antelopes and a leopard, or antelope population and leopard population, and then maybe there's nothing else available except impalas because all the other antelopes have died because of the drought. It's an exceptional circumstance. And then the leopard can make a substantial dent in the population of that particular species. And then we have a problem with the whole ecosystem because there has been an exceptional circumstance. But this is not an exceptional circumstance. This is the hornbills just feeding on these termites, and the lapwings feeding on these termites, and unless there is really something horrible going on, they are kind of able to sacrifice a certain amount of their mound, the population of their mound. It's the same with alates, the reproductive members or reproductive caste of termites. They come out in such a flurry during the wet season, and they're consumed. Many of them are consumed. In fact, there's more of them consumed than there are that actually get to go out and reproduce. And the numbers of how many of them are actually released from the mound compensate for the fact that so many will be eaten. And many prey species compensate like that. Remember we were talking about the wildebeest earlier when I was with them, and how when they do reproduce and how they have this fixed breeding season so they can synchronize births around November, December. It's a similar thing. When they have this peak, then they saturate the predator activity. A predator can only take so many wildebeest calves, and that would mean that at that time perhaps more would survive because it's saturated. If the births were staggered, then so would the feeding of the predators. Similarly, alates saturate the predators at that point too in the wet season. Interesting to watch that they actually fight quite a bit, especially amongst the hornbills. They're very charismatic creatures, these hornbills. Very much indeed. I am going to move towards Gallagher Pan. Hi, Ben 10, take 2. How are you? I hope you're well. You'd like to know if there are any survival differences between the red and yellow-billed hornbills. The only real difference between them, apart from a slight size difference, is the beak. Of course, the yellow-billed hornbills have this thicker, more robust beak, which simply means that they can eat or take prey that's a little bit bigger than the red-billed hornbill can. So there's not a huge difference. But that slight difference is enough to make sure that each one of them have a sufficient niche so that each can survive and are not in total competition. When two species are in absolute competition and they don't have any subtle differences, then one will eventually kill off the other, or there just won't be enough resources to sustain both of those. So there's always just a tiny, slight difference. In fact, these hornbills are a good example of that. Cool. All right, let's head to Gallagher Pan and see if we can get lucky again with a cat. Maybe see if my chameleon's doing okay. But I'm going to send you over to a very camouflaged flat cat while I get going.
So we have followed this line all the way to here. You can see how camouflage he is in this long grass. You can hardly see him. After the distance is covered, he looks like he's ready to sleep for the day. A little bit on the sun, so as the sun goes up, he's going to try and find a shady spot. So we're thinking of letting him be for now, and maybe we can try and catch up with him again on this afternoon's drive. I want to just head out and see what else we can find. So as we leave this guy lying down, we're going to hand you over back to Steve and see what he's got for us.
Thanks, Barney. Well, we were talking about poo before, weren't we? Now, I know poo, elephant poo, is a wonderful substance. And there's one of my favorite things to talk about with elephant dung is because I enjoy my medicinal plants. Those of you who don't know me very well, I'm very into medicinal plants, and elephants are regarded as the non-selective collector of medicinal plants. Now, medicinal plants in South Africa, 2013, there were 27 million users officially. Through a study. Obviously, sometimes these things are biased or unbiased, but people use medicinal plants from the wilderness, from the African wilderness in South Africa alone. So elephants walk around and they collect it through the bark and the roots and the leaves of plants. All these plants have got the most amazing medicinal value. So what you can actually do, it's a very good sort of cleanser of the aura of energy, is to take some elephant dung. It must be dry, doesn't burn if it's wet, and we're going to light it. Very good for making fires. I must be very careful with what I do with this as well, because it is the dry season. But you can use sticks to make a friction fire, and then you can catch the coal inside the elephant dung, and with this you can start a fire very. Have you ever heard of smudging? Smudging is when you basically cleanse the energy of something. So I'm going to smudge all of you lovely viewers out there. You ready? Here we come. Here's the smoke. Cleansing all of your auras, all of your energies. And wonderful. Now, by inhaling the elephant dung, it's actually been known very well to cure headaches. If you have a headache, you want to burn this, and it will cure your headache. There's so many different plants the elephant's been feeding. It's very hard to know exactly what's in there, but so many plants have got the property of cleansing. See how it's still burning? So you can actually go from one fire to another by keeping that going. Get to your next fire, and you want to start it up again. Isn't that incredible? So I've just cleansed myself. I'm feeling quite terrific now. I'm going to make sure that I put this out. BK wants me to cleanse him. Yeah, I'm just going to cleanse BK. There we go, Beaks. There we go. Butterfly wants to know if you can dung. Well, you can. It definitely spoke. Make sure that I put.
So we've just found. Those of you who were with us earlier when we were doing like the little ice cube thing, remember we were saying how this temperature is really affecting the little armored ground crickets and things like that, and I said they'll actually start, as the sun rises, they'll start climbing up into the bushes and trees. Well, here's an example exactly of what I was talking about. Look at them all on the ground at the bottom over here, and there's one there. So they're starting to do exactly that. This tree, in fact, with my hand on it, I can feel this bark is already starting to warm up really, really nicely, although the air temperature is really cold. And that's back to what you were saying, where the sun's not warming the air, it's warming the substrate, it's warming the sand, it's warming objects, and that is what actually generates a little bit of temperature in the air itself. So that's why these little armored ground crickets, and there's very, very few around now compared to what there were earlier. I'm just looking at this weird looking tree. It's actually called Cadaba aphylla. It's a very striking bush that we get out in this environment. It's like this gnarly, old, weird shaped bark over here. One of our other guides was talking about medicinal plants in South Africa. This one is a potent laxative. So we're not going to be trying it. But the interesting thing about this, and I'm just looking at another plant that's going inside it here. And Chandra, I don't know if you're going to actually be able to get in there. You see this one over here. I don't know if you can see past these other, it's got these tiny little round leaves on it. You got it there? So this is called a mistletoe. Anyone that's interested? No, I'm just kidding. But these mistletoes are super important for birds. And that mistletoe in combination with this cadaba. This cadaba gets the most beautiful, beautiful red flowers on it that the sunbirds cannot resist. When they're in flower, these bushes just get covered in dusky sunbirds, and Morocco sunbirds are the two common species that we get here, and they go crazy over this. And then these mistletoes, they get these beautiful little red, bright orange berries, and super, super, super important for birds. Neither of them have flowers or fruit at the moment, but that's just out of interest. And then looking at this bush clump that we got here, now I'm kind of like going off on a bit of a tangent here, but in this bush clump here, then you got this little one here called a honeythorn. This is a super important plant, probably one of the most important genera is called Lycium. Those of you who enjoy your health foods may know a berry called wolfberries. It's marketed, branded as wolfberries from Europe and Asia. It's exactly the same genus as this, Lycium. I don't know what the species is. This is Lycium acutum. It's called a honeythorn. Some people call it a river thorn. Here we know it as a honeythorn. Incredibly sweetly scented flowers. They are minuscule little things in spring, but they got this strong honey scent to them. And again, vitally important for birds and insects and a lot of mammals. Even things like jackals will eat them, the fruits. Then over here we've got another tree. And why I'm telling you is just when you look at a bush clump like this, you think, oh, okay, well, it's a couple of like scraggly bushes. But when you start going into it, what's actually here? So this bush here, and our colleagues in the Lowveld will know it very, very well. Lots of them down there, especially that Pinda area. It's called a buffalo thorn. Again, you can eat the leaves, you can eat the fruit. It is honey made from the nectar of these flowers. These flowers are tiny. I mean, they're little greenish white flowers. But honey that is made from the nectar of these is one of the best flavored honeys, certainly that I've tasted in southern Africa. And again, you can eat the fruits. Called a buffalo thorn. Buffalo love staying in these thickets. Even the dried leaves are highly nutritious. So that's just kind of like as a random stop and say, well, here's a tiny little bush clump. It's probably 3 or 4, like say 4 meters across by, let's say, the same width. But look at the diversity just in here. And that's not even like going into like the little grasses and things. And, you know, if we had to dig underneath it, you'd probably find a whole lot more as well. And yeah, here's your waxberry as well. You know, these little waxberries, these little plants, we did a very brief thing on them the other day. Again, super palatable, and they normally get a little bit taller. You can actually see them growing up inside this thicket, how high they get inside here. Super palatable. Oh, wait, here's actually some berries. Hold on. I got it. Okay. I'm going to come a little bit closer here for you. And this is why they're called waxberries. You get some, you got these on it. Those tiny little fruit. I know it is so super small, but look at those fruit. They look like wax. And that's what a lot of these things will be eating, including the armored ground crickets. Speaking of which, I just found one here who's like, there's like a beginning of the season ground cricket. Anushka has just asked, do we get sand fleas in the Kalahari? Not to my knowledge. We may, I don't know, but I've never seen them in my time here. But again, I'm just, you know, there are so many different things out here. And, you know, I mean, I've been here 15 years. It doesn't mean, you know, I know every single thing out here. I mean, there's just masses that I don't know. And I just haven't seen sand fleas, but they may well occur here. But I'll have to check that up for you. Yeah, that's cool. So there's a little armored ground cricket from probably near the beginning of the season. And this one probably just died from that last cold snap. And then there's the other ones warming themselves up. Yeah, so there's waxberries. Yeah, it just shows, so just in one little clump, what you can find. This grass, interestingly, this very, very fine stuff growing at the bottom of here. Let me grab a nice example there. It's all dying off now. This is it's one of the common names is called it's called a love grass. I'm losing my ear there. And this is a very, very important nesting grass for a lot of birds out here, especially I'm trying to see if I can actually see a nest somewhere close by to show you. For the wax bills and what we call these Bart monarchies, these scaly feathered finches, these tiny little birds, and they put their nests in the acacias, in these thorn trees, and they're normally very, very distinctive. If I see one, we'll actually stop and have a look. There should be one around here somewhere. Anyway, we'll find one for you and we can have a look. But again, it just shows, one little clump like it. So even if you're at home in your garden, and it doesn't make a difference if it's if you've only got a veranda, you live in a high rise and you've only got a veranda. If you can have a tiny piece of wild, and it could be a single plant pot that you don't manicure, you just leave it, whatever grows out, let it grow out. But if you've got a garden, even if you have a manicured lawn with roses, but if you've got one tiny little section even that you just leave to grow wild, the diversity that you can get in that will actually be very, very surprising. And we're looking at this like in the dry time at Swallow now. But yeah, in summer there's just masses going on and tons of butterflies and all sorts of cool things. So anyway, while Jandra and I amble down the road and ponder on diversity or biodiversity, head over to Taylor and see what she's got going for you on that end.
We are indeed, and we searched, and then Dylan, as you said, you should just stop and look around. We did, and look what we found. Amazing. A giraffe just standing amongst all the trees. What are you doing here on your own? No, he's off. I'm sure he's going to find some more giraffe. He's going to disappear down into, probably heading towards that knobthorn, that big tree in the distance. Maybe he'll have a feed on that. We don't really have too much fruit around at the moment either. Not that giraffe particularly indulge in fruit of sorts. I think they love to eat some flowers. I've seen them eating a few flowers every now and then. And then, of course, their main diet is trees, is to eat the leaves. So I think that's where he's going, because everything else here, the bush willows, the sickle bush, what else have we got here? Some quarry trees, some sandpaper raisins. They're not particularly tasty and nutritious, so I think he'll head for that one. But he's disappeared, so let's carry on down the road. Let's see what else we can find here. All this talk of food has got me very hungry. I wonder what I've got in my snack box. I always have snacks. I have some cashew nuts somewhere, some dried mango that I'll probably munch on. Not now though, because I'd hate for you to have to listen to me chewing. Let's see what these are on the road here. So no luck with those lions. We've just been checking. Lots of hyena tracks though. They've been very, very busy today. They've been running all around and they're making all sorts of sounds last night as well. So this is a really great section though, because we're just driving along the edge of a little drainage line here. A bit of a depression, and there has been 2 different leopards that have been sighted a couple of times around here. So that's what we're actually having a look for now, is just to see if we can actually spot one of these little leopards. But again, no luck just yet. I'm trying to see also if there's anything with fruit. But at this time of the year, there isn't much fruit in the Sabi Sands. We sort of have this patch where there isn't anything. Oh, do you know what tree does have fruit on at the moment? It's the balanites. It's the torchwood trees that have fruit. And we watched an elephant shaking a tree quite dramatically, and then all the fruit was falling down. But the next lot of fruit will be coming up. Jackalberries, my favorite. So delicious, so sugary too. So we can keep an eye out for them. But we can also start getting some nice smells coming through in end of August, September. The knobthorn trees that I was telling you about that the giraffe like to eat. What is that sound? Did you hear that? Someone is playing a game on Bushwalk. So we have some entertaining people here that are making the sounds of a sheep while we're, of course, live. And I obviously have an earpiece in my ear and couldn't hear what was going on, but it sounded like a distress call. But anyways, I think the Bushwalk team, they're doing some tracking and trailing, are just in the bushes. Should I? Yeah, yes, there would not be any sheep in the bush. Although we are surrounding Hoedspruit, you never know, a lamb might pop through the fence one day. It'd be very much like a Jurassic Park scene, though. We know with the goat, it won't last very long out here, especially if it made sounds like that. But I think that was a Norman that's making those noises. So Norman is an instructor at eco training, but he is also an assessor for tracking and trailing, which is obviously a very important skill to have. I'm not very good at it, so I'm going to have to go for lessons. But it's crazy how you hear these sounds over the rumbling of the engine. What have we got here? Yes, Alex, animals do get hiccups. I've heard lions with hiccups. Mainly the cats I've seen with hiccups. I mean, my dogs used to get hiccups every now and then too. I'm trying to think, I don't know if can an elephant get hiccups? Maybe. I'm not sure. I have not heard all the animals get hiccups before. I'm just trying to see if there's any nice tracks on the ground that we can have a look at. It seems as though the bushwalk team has already been walking around here, so we're just going to have lots of footprints. No, nothing there, I'm afraid. What else can we look at? It's not even one bird in sight. Can you believe it? This is so typical of the animals. But we're going to get to a little point around the corner now, where it sort of hugs the drainage line. So perhaps this is where we can find a little bird party. Haven't been able to do too much birding with you. I'm just going to tell you lots of stories now. But essentially what we saw yesterday morning, Gert and I saw two southern white-faced scops owls, which was really nice. Oh, hang on, there's a squirrel that's just run across the road. I think it was a squirrel. Let's have a look. Where are you? Going to stop just up here and then we'll scan in the trees. Squirrel? No, just a little hornbill playing some tricks on us. I can hear it going cock, 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 cock. On that happy note, it seems as though Dylan's been very busy this morning and he's found some more meerkats.
So as we've been bumbling around, we just got this group of meerkats. I don't know if it's one of our habituated groups. It's at a burrow system I don't know about. So it could also just be a completely different wild group. So we're sitting at 100 yards from them. So, that's why they're just ignoring us completely, even if they are wild. Or when I say wild, all our groups are wild, but an unhabituated group. So even if they are unhabituated, they probably just wouldn't run away in that. Albeit disturbed, but they seem quite relaxed. It could be one of the habituated groups. I'd have to check with our habituators. But it's interesting to note now, our time, it is almost 9 o'clock, and they're still at the burrow systems. That gives you a good indication of the low temperatures that were reached in the early hours of the morning now. Of course, the challenge for these little things, remember we were talking about body surface area earlier, and in cold temperatures like this, how fast they can lose body heat and how they need to keep it going. So the challenge for them in a point like this is saying, well, what is that cut-off point where they can stay inside a burrow if it's very, very cold? But if that goes on for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, they do need to get out and forage, regardless of how warm it is in the burrow. They can't just keep losing energy without replacing it. So, there will come a point in saying, well, okay, we need to go foraging, and off you go. But then that also has another side to it as well. It's like your habitat quality becomes critical then, because, if they've been functioning or operating in an area where there's not that much food available, or they're battling to get food for the group, then you can start losing members in a colony, and those will tend to be older ones or very young ones, any animal that's compromised in some way. So it could be an injury, it could be disease, it could be very, very old animals, things like that. But just the fact that these ones are still sitting here now probably tells you that does indicate that the quality of the habitat is good in terms of prey items for these little predators. If you walk around here, there's lots of little scorpion burrows and things, so I don't think certainly not battling for food at the moment now. But as the season progresses, that could become more and more of a challenge for them. I must actually try to find out if our teams are aware of this group of meerkats, because it's very close to the Khorsas and Musadi, her group, and another group called the Mokalas, which are in this area. Oh, you see it directly above the meerkats? There's that red bird in the tree. Chandra, I don't know if you can see it. Immediately above the meerkats. You got it? Straight above the meerkats. If you go in the tree immediately above the cats. You got him. Okay, so that's a crimson-breasted shrike. That is one of the most strikingly colored birds that we have at Tswalu. Yeah, that's gorgeous. So that's one of the bush shrikes, and from this distance you won't see, but it's actually got a little hook on the bill. I don't know if you noticed, they weren't in the same frame at the time, but when that bird landed, boom, some of the meerkats, the young ones, disappeared underground immediately. I think it was the surprise of the bird rocking up immediately. It's unlikely to ever pose a threat to the meerkats, but what it's doing, you can see it sitting looking at the meerkats down below. But what it's doing is it's hoping, it's coming down low now, it's hoping that as they dig and they forage around there, that they accidentally unearth something that shrike can fly down and grab it. So he's actually now deliberately targeting that group of meerkats and hoping to get a morsel. Because they are predatory, those birds. They're going for insects and grubs. I've seen them going for scorpions. See, he's coming down lower and lower and lower. The meerkats aren't worried because they don't recognize that bird as a threat to them, and it's extremely unlikely that the bird would be any threat to a meerkat. I mean, I think if he even tried something, he would end up on the wrong side there. But that's what I love, these little associations. Whether it's whatever the association is. We've got a really fun thing that we've seen a couple of times on Tswalu, in terms of Cape foxes and polecats. Polecats are like little skunks. Looks like it's a little black and white thing that looks very, very much like a skunk, just smaller. And they've actually been seen following Cape foxes around. We don't know exactly what the link there is, but it's almost certainly got to do with a feeding thing. As the foxes are digging up little mammals, the polecats can get a chance of going for it. Patty has just asked, how does a new meerkat family form? Now that is a very, very, very good question. It's what we see in these meerkat families, you get a dominant male and female. Okay, what we call the alpha male, alpha female, or sometimes we call it the matriarch. And what happens there is that being the two dominant ones, they suppress all the other females from breeding. But what can happen is if, let's say that there's a martial eagle in the area and that martial eagle manages to catch that alpha female. Well, she's out of the picture, she's gone, done and dusted. Another one will take her place. So you can get a group like this. Let's assume this is one of our habituated groups, and we say, okay, this is the Mokalas over here, named after these camel thorn trees. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a new group, and we've only just recently found them. The Mokalas could have been habituated over 10 years, or 5 years, or 2 years, whatever. And that leadership has changed multiple times over that. So the ones that we started habituating originally are not the same individual animals that we're seeing now. So that group could have just been continued successive generations. So those family units are very, very stable. But leading back to your question, the other way that this happens is when they're starting a new colony, you get these splinter groups. So the young males, young females can move away from these groups and they'll link up with other youngsters. that have been splitting up from other groups, they can form a new colony and they'll dig their burrows or take over spring air burrows and just modify them. Squirrel warrens, meerkat burrow, mongoose burrows, things like that. The other thing that happens, and we see it very, very frequently, is that individuals that move away from one group, they will try join up with another group that's already established. And that creates that gene flow, that genetic transfer between the different groups. So there are different ways that they function. So you've got that inherent stable family group that with just successive generations. You've got other individuals that keep kind of like worming their way into those groups, which creates a genetic diversity there. And you can get that the group split and then joining up together, you know, from other ones that are split off from other groups. So there's different ways around that. But that's an interesting question. Wow. Cobalt, so there's a question that I don't know the answer to offhand, and I will look that up. Cobalt has asked the question there, do meerkats grow extra fur for winter? I would imagine so. Most animals get a winter coat. Certainly out here where your winters get very, very cold. And of course, hair on any organism, you know, will be cycling through its whole life and that, you know, on a regular basis. So I would imagine so. But I would have to actually check up on that, and I will do that. I'll ask around if anyone's actually done any specific research on meerkat coats and, you know, how they change from summer to winter season. If in fact they even do. They may in this environment where they're using burrows to kind of ameliorate these extremes of temperature, they may actually not even need that. So that's a great question. Thank you. It's finally we're probably sitting now at about 7 or 8 degrees, so the temperature's maybe a little bit more. Temperature's picking up now. So I'm very happy about that. We can feel our fingers and toes. Those of you who are wondering, you can also see Jandra and I are still looking after Mel. Or Mel Gibson Mel Mark II, Mel 2.0. We actually given her had to keep warm over there. So still with us, kind of looking a little bit the worse for wear now, but still joining us on every drive. We're going to head back down to our colleagues in the Lowveld, and Jandra and I, we're going to keep ambling down and see what we find. So enjoy.
Right. Hello again. We are still looking for something to show you. But you know what? I'm going to be a bit of a rebel today. Very unlike me. I'm bringing out Maurice. If Mel Gibson, the melon, is featuring today, Maurice, it's your time to shine. Just joking, everybody. It's a gift. Lion tracks. This is now what we are looking for. Let me show you. Sorry, Maurice, your time to shine is now over. Two sets of lion tracks. Right, let me get untangled. Oh, no, I've got to unplug the wrong one. Sorry, this is always very exciting. They call me Tangled Taylor, because I always get tangled in things all the time. Yes, I'm wearing shorts, I know. You're probably all thinking, what's wrong with you? But laundry day. I don't have anything else. Okay. And I still have one glove on. Right. Here is a footprint. Can you see it nicely, Gert? Not when I put my shadow over it. I'm doing it upside down. Have we got it? So it's quite a big footprint. And there's one set of tracks walking around here. And it's very, very wide. And it's almost as wide as it is long. Now, this track is still going to get, I think, a little bit bigger. There's another set going on that way. Those two young male lions are definitely walking here. And then, if you have a look, how low can you go? Gert? Can you go down low? All the way to the floor? Okay, I'm just checking. Up here. Here's another track. And this is a kudu track. Can you see that? So you can see that the trackers on top of one another. This is very typical of kudu, where they directly register. So where they put the front foot down and the back foot steps right on top of it. I know we've spoken about it in great detail. It's a very good tactic when you do live in the dense bush and you need to walk quietly. I wonder if these lions were maybe following the kudu, or it could just be a coincidence. But those boys were looking hungry, very, very hungry. So we'll carry on going down the road. They don't look super fresh, but it's definitely from this morning, maybe just a little while ago. Sorry, I'm just adding all sorts of things. So we're going to keep going down the road. We're actually going straight in the direction of Leopard Dam. Steve is doing the same thing. He's also looking at some evidence.
I am indeed, Taylor. We have found some wonderful tracks walking in this direction on the road. A very large animal. Haven't shown any of these tracks for some time. And it's a male. I know that because of something that's behind us over there. But let's see if we can show you these tracks. Here they are in the sand. Which one's going to be better, BK? These ones are the ones closer. 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 Here we go. Here we have a wonderful track right over here. Let me just get a stick. You can see that there's a toe. There's a toe. And there's another toe. So 3 toes. And then the back of the foot makes this lovely W. Can you see that? Is that clear? Can you see that toe there? That toe there. So 3 toes. The animal is going in that direction. It's a track of a rhino. Now, if I just put my foot next to it, you'll see that it's pretty much the same size as my foot. So bigger than the giraffe track. Now, we don't get black rhino here in this area. They have been recorded, but they're not as common as white rhino. And a black rhino track would be about here on my foot. They're much smaller, whereas the white rhino track is pretty much the same size. Bear in mind, you do get smaller white rhino. So how else do we have a look? Now, take your finger. There's the toe. You see you've got toes on either side. You've got either side. So that toe, measure it, and go and put it at the front toe there. Can you see it nearly takes up the same distance as that? Let me use my knife. Maybe that'd be more helpful. The knife, can you see it's the same size? And then that fits in there just more than once. Can you see that, Beaks? Whereas a black rhino, this toe over here is so small, you could take this toe and you could fit it in to the front of the toe twice. Okay. Also, with the white rhino has got a W at the back. How lovely for white. So there we go. White rhino track. Very easy to determine the difference between them. There's a couple other differences in the fact that the black rhino track's a bit more squashed. The distance between this toe here is quite pronounced. If this toe is quite small, so black rhino track, that is not a black rhino track. I'm not even going to try to draw you a black rhino track. I'll probably show you one in a book. It's much better to do that, but far smaller. White rhino track gets up to 30 centimeters. Black rhino track maximum 24. Now 6 centimeters, everybody, is a lot. Now you might be wondering why I also only have one glove. I lost one. So one is better than none, and I actually wear 3. I have 3 gloves. We are buddies. Very good. Well, I hope that tracking segment makes sense. We're going to continue on here, and in the meantime, send you up north to Ngala, where Barney has got his rice.
So we have successfully, just as we left that male driving a little bit of a distance to the southwest, we lucked out as we saw them crossing the road. It was 2 adult lionesses and 3 youngsters that are about maybe a year and a half, close to 2 years. We didn't get a great visual for the adults when they crossed the road, but looking at the area where we are at, it looks like it might be the Birmingham breakaway. However, in this southwestern section of the property where we are, I wouldn't be surprised if it's animals that I've never seen before, because we are very close to the boundary with our property in the western section called the Timbavati. So this could be any other line that might have come from that side. Sort of similar thing, the lioness's head is up and she's looking, face full of scars. She looks like quite an old lioness. Don't recognize her right away. Maybe if I see more of her, I can be able to confirm. But one beautiful thing about having a property like us, where we're not fenced to our neighboring properties, is actually getting to see animals that we don't know, because the animals can move to wherever they want to. So most of the cubs are lying down flat. They are still in the sun, and one of the lionesses' head is up. Looks like something caught her attention. I don't think she's going to stay in that position for too long, though. Joy, the Rossman's territory is very big. It doesn't go into the Kruger, but it goes into our other neighboring property called Manyereti, cut through our property all the way to the western part of our property into the Timbavati, which is where they originally came from. The Rossman's territory, if this is part of the breakaway pride, they are controlling both prides, the Birmingham pride and the breakaway pride, which means that these cubs that are sitting in front of us now will be the offspring of the Ross males if this is the part of the Birmingham breakaway. However, their territory in the last 3-4 months has started to be squashed slightly by other males that have been challenging them. So it's not as big as it used to be when they first got here about 2.5 years ago. Look at how dark the black behind the ears, how distinct that is. It's really the only thing you can see on that lioness now when she's looking away, because of this dead grass that's all over around them. And the function of that and the black at the back of the tail, which you can hardly see at the moment, is to help them to be able to keep up with each other, in particular the cubs, when they're moving through long grass. Look at how distinct that is. It does look like this is going to be it for them for the morning. They might also have covered some serious ground overnight. Maybe the lionesses might have even tried to hunt until they eventually come here. So chances are that from where they are, as it gets warm, as we can feel it in our own skin, that they might get up and look for a better shady spot, which is where they might spend the day. Very quiet out here, huh? If you keep quiet, you can hardly hear any birds singing anymore since it's warming up, different to what we heard in the morning. Gracie, thanks for a nice question. No, they don't. They keep the same coat as they will have in summertime, but in winter to keep warm, they get active a little bit more than they will do in summer. Whereas in summer, they're active because it's so warm and they've got that same winter coat. They're much less active, in particular in the heat hour of the day, which is why they're mostly active at night when it's nice and cool. See how she's moved up. Cool, so see how she's moved up slightly onto just a little bit of a shade that's there. And she's now lying down there. I think that will be it for her for the day. And I think the rest of the cubs might get up and go close by. But we're going to hand you over to Steve to go have a look at the massive tree.
Well, we found a tree, a magnificent jackalberry tree. Absolutely spectacular. Now, it is that time of day for me to get out and give a tree a little cuddle. And there's no better tree on the reserve to give a little cuddle than this ginormous jackalberry tree. You just imagine how many stories, if this tree could talk, it would be able to tell you. Of course, it can talk. We just aren't able to understand what it has to say. Now, many people might go and say, but how on earth do you know it's a jackalberry? Well, quite easy. If you can see me here, BK, you'll see that the stem, the main trunk, comes down in this fluted sort of manner. There are these flutes that come down. It's not a straight trunk. It's very fluted at the bottom. And the bark itself is quite dark in places, almost as if someone has lit a fire against it. You'll see all along here, it's almost as if there's been a fire burnt along the bark. So Diospirus mespelliformes, the pears of the gods. The jackalberry is a habitat tree for many, many species of birds, produces wonderful fruit, and you can actually make it distilled brandy out of the pods, the fruits themselves. You can eat them. They feel like fluffy pears, and they are very, very tasty. So a tree that I would one day love to find one of our female or male leopards in with a carcass of some sort. But just last week or the week before, we had that pair of giant eagle owls in here. But a wonderful place. We find baboons in irregularly, owls, squirrels, barbets will take over the tree for the fruit. And it is one of the choicest sort of spots of cavities for cavity nesting trees, birds. Hello, Perlin. You want to know how all of these trees ended up where they did? Well, Perlin, we spoke about the guinea fowl earlier. And the guinea fowl will pick up grass seeds and they'll move around and deposit them through their poo. We saw the elephant dung. I found quite a few pieces of elephant dung. Now, elephants will pick up fruit, baboons will pick up fruit, many birds will pick up fruits, and they'll move off away from where they ate them, and they'll deposit them in their dung. Now, that is distribution by birds or distribution by animals. So there's other distribution methods. We are also along a dry river system, so this system sometimes flows with water. Seeds get picked up by water and flowed downstream. But also you get wind distribution of some plants. But a majority of the ones we're finding around here these days have been moved around through the dung of animals. Fruit-eating birds, a term known as avicory, the distribution via birds, or zoocory, the distribution via animals. Now, some of them have the ability to pop and shoot their seeds on their own, and that would be a term called autocory. And then we also get hydrocory with water, and then aerocory with the wind. My favorite of all, though, is that of fire. Many of our fynbos plants rely on fire for distribution, or at least germination, and that is called the phenicocory. You can imagine the phoenix coming out of the flames, phenicocory, and one that is very important for many grass seeds out here and is extremely important in the fynbos of South Africa is ants. ants will remove seeds from the surface of the ground and take them underneath, and they'll be stored at different levels, and fire will always burn the ground, and fynbos is very reliant on fire. Different depths, different seed levels, different heats will result in a very high diversity. And the fynbos biome, with over 9,000 plants we find down in the Western Cape, is the most diverse biome in the world. And that is because of the very well adapted seed distribution as well as plant pollination by many, many, many different organisms. And remember, everybody, we are live and interactive, and any questions that you have for the final moments of the show. Also, if you find the time and the inclination, please feel free to go to the link below. Any support is most welcome, so we can continue to bring you wild and wonderful images from the African wilderness. Okay, well, on we go. I hope you've hugged a tree today. If not, why not? Trees have got enormous amounts of energy. They are the grandfathers of time, and they stand here watching the landscape move. They're very rooted, and they are just spectacular. I am absolutely over the moon with plants, but before it runs away, let's quickly send you over to Anbian and Ngala with their sleepy lion.
So these lines, as indicated earlier, they look like they're all settling down. It's just one of the young males out of these cubs who is still grooming a little bit, still a little bit exposed into the sun, enjoying the last bit of a hot sun before he heads to the shady spot. Looking at the yawn, looks like he's ready to get up and join the rest in that nice shade where they are. And we probably gonna start thinking about leaving them soon, and looking at the fact that it's only 2 lionesses, even if they are part of the breakaway Birmingham, down where they are, here where they are, they might have been trying to hunt, but at the same time maybe looking to reunite with the rest of the pride. The distance that they are on, when that Rosemary was calling, they most likely to have heard him, but the lionesses are most likely not to respond to that, because once he's back with them, sneeze coming from the young male there, looking like he's carrying on grooming. So they're not going to respond that easily to him, back to our story, because if he's with them, if they kill something small like an impala, the females and the youngster themselves might not get anything. So they're going to try and keep a low profile away from him. But they themselves might have also been trying to use a low-tone contact call, as we were talking about it earlier, to try and reunite with the rest of the pride. Cool, so we are going to leave these lines. There's not much happening. And thank you very much to all the viewers who tuned in this morning. I hope you enjoyed a lot of stuff that we see. It was quite cool to follow through that male line heading through the thick bush and crossing the riverbed, and to end it off with these lionesses here. And hopefully you'll tune in again, join us this afternoon for our afternoon drive. Thank you very much and enjoy your day.